Thought I'd do a little video on how to program an MX780 remote with a basic variable programming for a device that does not have discrete on and off power buttons. So for example, we will use a cable box today, Motorola cable box from our local company, which is Cox Cable. They do not have a discrete on and off. They have a toggle power button. So we will set we will just set up the device and add a variable so the remote tends to follow if it's turned the device on or off to make your programming more reliable for your customers. To start, we'll go ahead and add an MRF260. I personally like to use channel 5. I have the best programming or RF reception on that one with the least amount of interference. Occasionally we do have to change it, but not always. TV, AVR, cable, and BD. Those are basic ports that I like to use with the MRF260. Occasionally we might have to share something, or we might eliminate the TV and add an extra device. Just kind of depends on what your overall system is. This is a pretty basic system, but this programming order makes it really easy to do. Make sure it really helps speed up your process. We're going to link that to the MRF260, and then we are done there. So we're going to go over to the MX780, and we're going to go ahead and create devices. I actually like to start with page 2, and I will add my TV and my AVR. The reason I do it in this order is it actually makes it easier for programming. It'll actually put them in the order that you'll want to control most of your devices. So after I've done my TV and my receiver, I will go back to the previous page, and then I'm going to do my number 1 device is typically a cable box. So we're going to name that Cox. Then we're going to do a Blu-ray, and then let's just say we're going to do the AM/FM radio. So it's just going to be a real basic setup. And make sure all these are labeled properly. So we have all of our devices on there. So we'll go to IR. We'll save that. Let's just say the TV is going to be a Samsung. Samsung TV. We're just going to do some basic discretes. That's going to give us our HDMIs, discrete on and off. So for our AV receiver, I actually normally use Yamaha receivers. So we'll use an RXA, let's see here, we'll say RXA 780. That's the Avantage series. We really like those. Just real reliable, easy to use. So we'll add the main page for that. Since we did that one, if I drop down to radio, then that will allow us to click over here in the MX780 tuner, just to give us some to make it a little bit faster. Save all. We'll go back up to Cox, go to cable. It's Cox Communications, Cox Digital, and we'll use the 043, which is your Motorola box. Save all of those. Go to Blu-ray. For this, we will use a Sony BDPS 380. Works well. It's got our discrete on and off. Still has our home and our Netflix button. So then after that, we put in our devices. We've done our IR data. If you go to your edit buttons, I like to make my first page is always going to be my power on and offs and my HDMI inputs that I'm going to use. So on this particular, we're only going to need HDMI 1. So I'll go to my AV receiver. I'll do the same things. We're going to use HDMI 1, HDMI 2, and tuner. So we don't need to worry about changing any of the rest of those. You don't actually see any of those buttons. For Cox, usually we'll do our DVR, favorites, page up and page down. I usually remove this replay button. I will hide the rest of our pages. Most of these are actual buttons that most customers don't need, so we try and make it simple. I will actually add my own button on the first page, bottom right, as cable power. This is our backup button. I'll show you how that works later on. So let's go to Blu-ray. Blu-ray, we usually put our home up, then you get your open and close, home, options is important, audio is usually not needed. Power, I will relabel that to BD power. Frame advance, usually don't need that. Those are on our main buttons there. And that's really about it, so we'll hide that page as well. Go down to the radio, which is the tuner. We do tuning up and down and preset up and down. I usually get rid of the category band just to make it very simple for our customers. So after that we have those all done. So we can save that, go to our punch downs, or our punch throughs. For a basic system like this, I hit select all. Our power on and off macro will be on every page. We want that to be with main. And our volume is always going to be our AV receiver. The rest of those you can leave as is because they will control their respective devices. RF, we'll go up here. I personally like to change all the devices to IR, RF, just in case whenever your eyes gets messed up or something like that. You always have a way to test your commands over the phone with troubleshooting to see if it's a RF issue, an IR issue, if the device is locked up. All of those things here. What I'm doing here on the RF is actually setting up our ports to go through to each of our devices so that when you send a command it only flashes on the device that it's supposed to. So we're going to hit save there. We're done with that particular page. I like to go hit file and save because sometimes your computer might crash or something like that. So this is going to be a basic variable page or programming basic variable. We'll just leave it like that. Hit save there. So then we go back to our programming. First things first, we're going to want to set our variable command for our cable box. So if you go onto your cable box page, as you can see, I just double click that. You can also over here and go to your drop down menu, break down Cox, and click on page 1. If you go up to the power button, up there it shows you it's cable .43 power. We actually want to change this to a variable. Over here we don't have a variable, so we want to set a new variable, and we're going to call this cable power. So for me, the easiest way to remember is what our variable is going to be, is the cable power on, true or false. So if we are sending the on command, as you can see over here, we're in the on button for Cox. I usually like to relabel that over on the property side on the right side of the screen to power on, so that when I'm in my macro I can see that I've actually pressed the power on button, not just a power button. That's a really good way for me to label. So if I'm pressing the on button, if the cable power is false, meaning the cable power has not been pressed, then I want to send the cable power button, and then I want to set my variable as cable power is true. Set. So cable power is true under the false tab. If the cable power is true, we're trying to turn the device on that's already on, then we don't want it to send a command, so we leave the true box open. So if the cable power is false, meaning cable box is off from what the remote remembers, then it's going to send the cable power button and then switch the variable to true. So then if we were to press that button again, it's going to look for if the cable power is on, which is true, then we are going to do nothing. After that, we're going to click over here on the cable power off button, and we're going to change that to variable as well. So now if we're trying to push cable power off, it's going to look, is cable power on false, true or false? If the cable power button is set to false, meaning it has not been turned on yet, then we're going to actually not do anything. So we're going to actually take this button. I usually hit Control X and it'll pull it out, and we go to the True tab. Then we will paste that in there, Control V, and then we will set our variable to cable power is false. Set. Make sure down here at the bottom where your cable is, the variable tab is set to cable power. What we're doing is looking for, is the cable power on, is true or false. Cable power is, if it has been pressed, that is true. If cable power, if it's the off button has been pressed, that is false. After we set that, then that is our variable for our cable box for on and offs. But we want to have a backup cable power button just in case the RF base didn't receive the command, or something was blocking it, or for whatever reason it gets out of sync. Then if you tell the customer, hey, you've pressed the main and cable, and now we don't see the cable picture, we can push the cable power button as a backup. So if you take that cable power command, which is that cable equals cable.043.power, if you take that and we want to copy that, Control C, go over here to cable power, and we want to paste that in there. So now it will just send that button. You don't want to copy and paste one of your cable buttons itself, because those are now variables. We want to make sure that those are not copied and pasted, because then it won't work. It won't track it properly. The cable power is a backup, and all it sends is that toggle on and off. So you can keep pressing that button. It's going to go on, off, on, off. Like I said, so on our cable power on button, under false, it's our cable power command. Cable equals true. Under true, there's nothing that happens. If we go to the cable power off, main off, cable power command, under the true tab is up there, plus cable power equals false. Under false, we do nothing. At the bottom, make sure your type is variable, and your variable is selected cable power or whatever you labeled it. And you can do this for any device that has a toggle on and off. Now for the rest of my programming, I will go to my on page. I will hit record. I will set my please wait screen. Then I will go down over on my left hand side. As you can see, all of our devices are in the order that I put them in. That's why I went to page 2 and then page 1, because we want to go to our TV. We want to turn the TV on. Receiver, turn it on. The Cox cable box, we will turn it on, because this is our basic on command. Blu-ray, we're going to actually turn the Blu-ray off. We're going to go back up to our TV, and we're going to choose HDMI 1, AV receiver, HDMI 1 for cable box, or whatever input you decided to choose. And then our final thing is going to be our jump to main Cox cable, page 1. After that, for me, the fastest way to do it now is I go in and I'll add my 0.5 second delay. And I actually will copy and paste these in. It's a lot faster for me than dragging and dropping or switching in between each press, saying that I need those. So now my power on is programmed, and my Cox cable is actually programmed. If I take and highlight all of this command here, Control C, go to my Cox. Now I can go in, delete what's in here, Control V. Now my power and Cox is done. So if we go to our Blu-ray page, I can actually paste that same command, that same series of macros in, Control V, and now all I gotta do is go down to the bottom, change the Cox to Blu-ray page 1. That's our jump. On our receiver, we need to, so I just delete that, hit my record button, and go to my page 1 and change that to HDMI 2 where my Blu-ray is. And I'll need to switch my cable power and my Blu-ray power. Turn my cable box off. Go over here, hit my off, and go in here and turn my Blu-ray on. So now, as you can see, now it's switched over to TV power on, AV power on, Cox on, Blu-ray power on, TV page, HDMI 1 receiver page, HDMI 2, and then we jump to the Blu-ray page. So we're done recording there. I'm actually going to go back and fix my power off command because I never changed it to power off under properties. So that way I can see what it says properly in my macro. So if I go back and show you the Blu-ray macro, now we can see it says Blu-ray power on and cable power off. Easiest way to go back and verify all of your macros. So we're going to go here. The nice thing about the Yamaha receivers is that they have a picture display for listening to the radio, so I like to leave that on. So basically we can use the same macro for everything, except for we're going to go and now we can turn the cable box off. And cable box is off, Blu-ray's off, TV still is HDMI 1. We do need to change where the input goes on the receiver, which is going to go to tuner. And at the very bottom we need to change our jump to radio page 1. Stop. So now we have all of those macros done. We just need to program our off macro. So if we hit our off macro, hit record, then we can hit please wait. Then we can go to our TV, power off, AV receiver, power off, cable box, power off, Blu-ray, power off, and we're going to jump to main page 1. Okay, let's go ahead and add our delays in there. 0.5 seconds usually works on this particular setup. Sometimes you'll have to add longer delays for your TVs because you're trying to switch inputs on your TVs and they're not receiving. That's another way we can use variables, but I can program that another day and set up another video for that. So now you can see TV off, receiver off, cable off, Blu-ray off, and we jump back to main page 1. Very, very simple programming. Basically our remote is done. For me, I go in and I hide main page 2 because the customer doesn't need to get into any of the TV or AV receiver commands. I try and set it up as very basic so that they're not, most people are wanting an all-in-one remote are not very techy, so they do not want all the extra commands. If we needed if a customer really wanted to have the full control of their receiver, we can actually leave page 2 unhidden, and we also want to hide main 2 page 1, so that way every time they press the main button on the remote, it only goes back to the main page 1. This is the only button it goes to, rather than jumping to a blank page or a different color page. Main will always do the same thing. The way that I just programmed this remote makes it very simple for anybody that comes in. They can press the green on button and they're ready to use Cox cable. Another benefit of programming the remote this way is that I programmed it where they don't even have to hit on first. They can just come in, grab the remote, and pick the activity they want to do, whether it's Cox, Blu-ray, radio. We could add Apple TV, we could add Pandora, but they can always just come in and choose the activity they want to do. They don't have to do a two-step process of pressing on, then press main, and then choose a command, or press on and then choose an activity. All they have to do is press on. It's going to go default to Cox cable or whatever device you wanted it to default to, or they can just choose the button next to that. This here was a basic programming for the MX780. This is the way that I like to program it. As you can see, it did not take very long. It's very fast, very efficient. So if you can even go through here and test. So if you double tap your power button here, it's going to actually jump us to the Cox for page 1 and show us all the buttons that we set up there. We can double press main, comes back. Then they can press double tap Blu-ray. This is going to take us to the Blu-ray page, ran through our macros, so on and so forth. So after that, what you're going to do is you're going to hit your program. You're going to hit your download button. It's going to tell you, are you saved? And we'll save it, plug in our remote, and hit download. Other than that, it's real basic. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. I really enjoy using variables, and I think there's a lot of great uses for them. Some people call them flags or whatnot for different types of programming. In particular, for the 780, it's called a variable, but you can use it for a lot of tracking. You can track and have your remote know where it's at based on what was pressed. So there's a lot of cool features you can use that for. But hopefully this video was helpful, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks.